Hey, what's up? It's Tati, and I'm back with another review. This time, season 2, episode 2 of WWE Rivalries Mankind versus The Undertaker. I love this episode. It was done very nicely. And I have to say, it really took me back to when I was a kid enjoying wrestling. And it really reminded me of the state of professional wrestling nowadays, where they lack originality, and I think that's one of the main reasons why people don't like to watch, is because everybody just feels like, you know there's nothing so special about them, whether it's their character or how they are in the ring. And that's something that's missing nowadays. Like, how could you make someone who's supposed to be dead and someone crazy like Mankind, who lives in a boiler room, believable to people? Like, they were absolutely out of these world characters that people absolutely loved, and sometimes even believed some of the wackiest shit that WWE presented in front of us when we shouldn't have believed it. So just want to give a quick little warning here and there. I might fangirl over The Undertaker. You guys know I'm absolutely obsessed with Mark Calloway. He is the reason why I fell in love with professional wrestling. So guys, let's get straight into this review. So The Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series in 1990, and since then, he ran through that locker room, opponent after opponent, rivalry after rivalry. And in 1996, WWE was kind of at a standstill. Like, who can we possibly go and get and go against The Undertaker and have an epic rivalry with? So during this time, Jim Ross was head of the talent relations, and he's going around looking for people to bring to the WWF and for a opponent, a rivalry for The Undertaker. He had in mind Mick Foley. Now, he pitched to Vince McMahon about Mick Foley several times. Vinnie Mac was like, hell to the nah. And one day he finally agreed, but he was like, hey, we can bring him in, but he has to wear a mask. One of the coolest part in this episode was them showing how they molded Mick Foley's face so that they can make the mask just for him. And you know what? Mick Foley and Mark Calloway, they do actually have some background together. They used to ride together when he was in WCW. They shared hotel rooms, and sometimes he even crashed at Mark's house. And these two, they really kind of formed a bond. And the person that you meet outside the ring is completely different sometimes from who that person is in the ring. So Mick Foley was in for a big treat when he got a chance to rival against Mark Calloway as The Undertaker. So Mankind was a tortured soul living in the boiler room of whatever arena that they were in that night. And he had a pet rat named George. I kind of forgot about that part. But he was batshit crazy. Wherever he did his promos, he took it to another level of insanity. And I think people believed he needed to be in a straitjacket. Now, he debuted the night after WrestleMania 12. The Undertaker was in the ring facing Bradshaw, and he interferes, and he's letting not just The Undertaker, but the WWF fans know who he is. And that right there started this epic rivalry between The Undertaker and Mankind. So the first match that was discussed for this rivalry was the Boiler Room Brawl, and that took place at SummerSlam 1996. Now, for this match, it starts off at the Boiler Room, which is basically Mankind's house, and is taken out to the ring. First person to get to Paul Bearer with the urn and takes it is the winner of this match. So a lot of people don't know this, but this match, part of it was taped. So the scenes where they're in the boiler room was taped. And once they're outside the boiler room, that was shot live at SummerSlam. And the match obviously continues out onto the ring to whoever wins in front of a live audience. Now, this was important for them to do, taping of the boiler room the night before SummerSlam, because there's a lot of risk factors here. They wanted to make sure that since this is the first time they're doing a match like this of its kind, they wanted to make sure that if anything were to go wrong, they would be able to handle it and not have to do that in front of a live audience. So after they filmed the portion of the match the night before SummerSlam, The Undertaker had a cut on his arm, and one of the doctors there wanted to sew it up. However, The Undertaker wanted the fans to believe that everything took place all at once, so he had to tell the doctor that he could not be sewn up so that the fans don't think that possibly this whole thing was taped, so he had to let it keep bleeding. And even right before the match had started the next day live, Terry Runnels had to go up to The Undertaker and tell him, she said, every time you bend your arm, do you know that blood is popping out of your arm? So that's when he realized like how much he was bleeding, but he had to keep going with it so everything can be believable. So these two take the match on into the hallway, all the way out into the ring. Now the Undertaker makes it to Paul Bearer first, and he goes to get the urn, and Paul Bearer's like, psych, you thought that I was going to give it to you? No way. And that's when everyone realized that, The Undertaker has been duped by Paul Bearer. And then we have Mankind, who makes his way to the ring and gets the urn from Paul Bearer. And now everyone is shocked about this betrayal. And this is where the rivalry gets real, real good. Now on to the second match that they discussed for this rivalry, which was the Buried Alive match, the very first ever. Now, Devon Dudley was interviewed for this episode, and he makes the perfect comparison of Mankind versus The Undertaker. He compared it to Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers, where no matter what happened, these motherfuckers would not die. Now, this match is one of my favorite matches, not just because of what they did in the ring, but because there was so much emotions involved. And I'm sure if you were one of those people who were in the audience that night, you were taken along in an emotional roller coaster because so much happened. So now we're towards the end of the match. The Undertaker gets Mankind in the shallow grave, and then as he's digging the dirt and putting it into the grave, we have Terry Gordy, who comes out and assists Mankind. Mankind is out of the grave now, and now the Undertaker is in, and both of them are digging now, digging the dirt, getting that into the grave, and now we have more WWF wrestlers come out, and they're helping with the digging as well. Now, you're probably thinking, why couldn't Mankind just do this on his own? Truth of the matter is time. So they miscalculated how much time it would take only for Mankind to fill up that grave. It was just going to take all fucking night, and they needed to make a point across because, the pay-per-view is live and is being taped, and they only have a certain amount of time to work with. So they brought out the other guys to come out and help. And if you think about it, all those guys that The Undertaker beat throughout the years, it makes sense as to why some of these guys would have want to come out and assist anyway. So now the grave is filled, and we have one of the most iconic moments to happen where the lightning strikes the grave, and The Undertaker, with his iconic purple glove, puts his hands out through the dirt, showing everybody that even though I'm a dead man, I'm not fucking dead. And oh my God, this is one of my favorite moments. It's so, so good. All the drama, the suspense, the horror, everything that you needed to make something like just a wrestling match cinematic was absolutely there. And I love it, love it, love it. So now on to the final match in this rivalry, which is the Hell in a Cell match at the King of the Ring in 1998. And 1998 was a really, really, really good year in professional wrestling. So now there was already a Hell in a Cell match, and that was The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. And they really set the bar at this match. So now Mick Foley is a little concerned. He wants to make sure that his match with The Undertaker stands alone from the first Hell in a Cell match. So he calls up his good buddy, Terry Funk, and asks him to help him out with figuring out how they should go about this match. So now they review the match, and Terry tells Mick that you should have The Undertaker throw your ass from the top of the cage onto the announce table. And Mick Foley agrees. He thinks it's a cool idea. So now he goes pitch this idea to Taker. Taker says no. Then he asks him again and again and again. And Taker's like, no, hell to the no. And he wants nothing to do with throwing him off from the top. Now it's the day of the King of the Ring pay-per-view. The Undertaker has a broken foot. He's probably wanting to get in and out of that ring. But Mick Foley comes out with Vinnie Mac, and they both cornered The Undertaker and was like, hey, He wants to be thrown off the top of the damn cage. Can you give the man what he wants? And at that point, the Undertaker's like, fuck it. And they're going to go along with this. And now onto the iconic match. I love this moment. Now, one of the reasons why this match was iconic was not just what The Undertaker and Mankind did in this ring, it was also because we had Jim Ross delivering some of the most iconic commentary of all time during this match. All those elements made this moment so special. So we start off this match. Both of them are at the top of the cage, right? So as they're walking on top of the cage, there was a little part of the panel that actually kind of broke. So it was possible that it could have fell through with both their weights pressuring onto the cage. So I feel like The Undertaker kind of quickly made his way with Mick Foley towards the edge of the cage, and then out of the blue throws him onto the announce table. And now this right here, I'm pretty sure anybody with a fucking beating heart who watched this moment, your heart stopped because you're like, what the actual fuck? It was absolutely insane. Now, Mick Foley hits the ground. He goes through the announce table. There's no padding underneath that table. So he's basically hitting the table and the floor. And even Jerry Lawler states that, he landed by his foot. Jerry looks down at Mick Foley, who opens his eyes and starts smiling like a madman. And he gets up and he is ready for more. So Mick, he wants to get back out there, but now there's so many people from the back, including Terry Funk, who comes out, and they're all like concerned about Mick Foley after taking a scary bump like that. And they actually get him on a stretcher and they're taking him to the back. The Undertaker is still on top of the cage, and they actually start lifting up the cage while he's still on it. So now, Mick Foley, being the badass that he is, he's like, I am being stretchered to the back. I'm going to finish this match. He gets right back on top of that cage after they lowered it. The Undertaker is still up there. And then The Undertaker delivers a devastating chokeslam through the cage. Mick Foley falls down, hits the mat, and then the chair that was up there, the steel chair that was up there, ends up falling on Mick Foley's face, knocking out some of his teeth, and one of them actually gets into his fucking nostril. Isn't that insane? And then we have Terry Funk and friends coming right back in that ring, making sure that Mick Foley was okay. Now, The Undertaker, he jumps down from the top of the cage, landing obviously on that broken foot. And you can see based on his reaction that he is in a lot of pain. And he's kind of hoping that Mick Foley will just lay there and just let this match end. And then Terry Funk, he gets up, he goes to Taker and say, hey, he's still alive. And Undertaker's like, yeah, okay. And then he proceeds to attack Terry Funk. And now this match is still going on. And no matter what happens, The Undertaker is telling Mick Foley, hey, bro, stay the fuck down. My foot hurt. And you about to kill yourself. Let's get this done and over with. But Mick Foley has other plans. He has some things that he wants to get done before this match is over. And he would be satisfied. So now, after everything that had happened with this match, The Undertaker is over it, his foot hurt, and Mick Foley is just being absolutely crazy, and he keeps telling Mick to stay down. But Mick insisted that there was a spot in this match where they need to bring out the thumbtacks, and that needs to be executed so that he can be satisfied with this match. So he ends up getting the bag from under the ring, and he sprinkles all the thumbtacks throughout the ring. And then The Undertaker delivers a chokeslam onto it, and the imagery of Mick Foley getting up and having those tacks on his back makes everything just so insane. It's violent and it's absolutely beautiful at the same time. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Mick Foley, prior to him being in the WWF, he has a background with hardcore matches, death matches back in ECW, back in Japan. So we've seen things like that from him. If you were not just watching WWF at the time. So anyway, The Undertaker ends up winning with a Tombstone Piledriver, and now the match is over. So Mike Chioda comes out, And he tells Mick Foley that they're bringing a stretcher to take him to the back. And Mick is like, hey, wasn't I on a stretcher earlier? He decided that he does not want to be taken back there with a stretcher, since it would look bad for him to have been on a stretcher twice in one night. So you see him going to the back with the reps and some of the other guys from the back, and they're escorting him to the back on his own 2 feet. And that makes the moment even more special. So even years after the Hell in a Cell match, Mick Foley felt like he could not outlive that moment. No matter what he did, people will always remind him of that moment. And it almost seemed as if he resented that match. Now, many years have passed by, and The Undertaker had a conversation with him, telling him that he and Mick Foley would never be able to outlive this moment, and that even after they're dead and gone, people will be talking about this match basically forever. And that made him feel much better about that match. And Mick Foley also says that he feels like his path was meant to be crossed with The Undertaker's path, for them to deliver some of the most iconic moments in professional wrestling. This was a really, really great episode. I enjoyed it. I felt like a little kid watching wrestling all over again. So if you haven't seen it, I do recommend taking a look here. They do have a lot of behind the scenes moments, even behind the scene moments of the Brawler Room Brawl match as well, where we had several moments of The Undertaker actually laughing. And, you know, we never really get to see him in that light. He's always so serious. And it just made these moments so special, especially now we get to see The Undertaker's actually doing interviews talking about his experience, and it's just absolutely amazing to see. So I will be back with the next episode, the review for episode 3, which is John Cena versus The Rock. So that will be very interesting. So I'll review that next Monday, since the AEW Revolution pay-per-view is on Sunday. And before that, I'll review episode 1, which is Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. Guys, thanks so much for watching my review. Bye.